In this video, we're going to explain how your resting heart rate is controlled. So to start off, we're going to label the key structures in the heart that we need to talk about when explaining this. So here we've got the SAN, or the sinoatrial node. Here we've got the AVN, or the atrioventricular node. Here in the septum, we've got the bundle of His, which is a bundle of conducting fibres. And then we've also got the Purkinje fibres as well, which spread across the walls of the ventricles. So let's go through how our heart rate is controlled. And this is just control of resting heart rate, so not thinking about exercise or chemo or baroreceptors. So the SAN, which at GCSE you learn acts like the heart's pacemaker. So the SAN initiates an electrical impulse. And we'll just go through the order of structures first of all, because just giving the structures in the correct order can sometimes get you a mark on the mark scheme. So from the SAN, it's going to travel to the AVN, or the atrioventricular node. Then it's going to travel along the bundle of His. And finally, it's going to travel down the Purkinje fibres. Okay, so it's going from here to here, down the bundle of His in the septum, and then along the Purkinje fibres and across the muscular walls of the ventricles. So let's go back to the beginning. The SAN initiates the electrical impulse, and the electrical impulse is going to spread across the atria, causing them to contract simultaneously, if I can squeeze that in. So that would be atrial systole. Both atria contract together as the electrical impulse spreads from the SAN across the walls of the atria. Now there's non-conducting tissue between the atria and ventricles. So the only way the electrical impulse can cross from atria to ventricles is via the AVN, because there's a layer of non-conducting tissue here and another layer of non-conducting tissue here. So it has to go to the AVN, and then it can move down the bundle of His in the septum. So I've mentioned that just because it can get you a mark on the mark scheme. So there's non-conducting tissue between the atria and the ventricles. So the impulse passes to the AVN, and we can say there is a short delay So when it reaches the AVN, there's a very short delay, but you might be asked to explain why. So the reason there's a short delay here before the electrical impulse travels down the septum is basically to make sure that the atria fully empty of blood before the ventricles start contracting. Okay? Right. So we've got to the AVN, there's a short delay, and then the impulse travels down the bundle of His. So it's traveling down the bundle of His in the septum, and it's going to go to the apex here. It's going to go down the septum right to the tip of the heart, or the apex of the heart. And then, if we just finish this off, the impulse travels along the, gosh, my writing, along the Purkinje fibres, causing the ventricles to contract, again, simultaneously. But it might be worth also adding, if I can squeeze it on maybe here, that when the ventricles contract, they will contract from the apex up, okay? And that, again, you might be asked why that's important. You want the ventricles to contract from the apex up, so the blood is pushed up into the arteries, into the pulmonary artery and the aorta. If the ventricles contracted from the top down, you can imagine what would happen. You'd end up just kind of pushing the blood down into the ventricles, and it would kind of pool down here. Obviously, we want it to leave the heart through the arteries. So the electrical impulse goes right down to the apex of the heart, then spreads up the Purkinje fibers. So it goes up over the walls of the ventricles, causing the ventricles to contract from the apex up. So the blood leaves via the arteries. Okay, so key things to remember. Make sure you can name the structures in the correct order. So we've got the SAN, the AVN, the bundle of His, and the Purkinje fibers. Remember to use the term electrical impulse, not just signal or message or something non-scientific. Remember the atria contracts simultaneously, then it passes through the AVN because that's the only way it can, because you've got non-conducting tissue between the atria and the ventricles. There will be a short delay to make sure the atria are fully empty of blood. Then we're going down the bundle of His, up the Purkinje fibers, making sure the ventricles contract from the apex up. And that's it. That's your control of resting heart rate explained. Make sure you share and save this video so you can revise it closer to exams and your friends can revise it too.